I believe that democracy is a natural result of the people having enough economic leverage for the government to be the main source of government revenue, right? So we turn into a democracy. Like, democracy is a natural thing that eventually happens when states source of revenue comes mostly from the people, basically giving the money to the state for the state to represent the people. So this is why having such high amount of natural resources get delays us getting to that point, because the government just has so much oil and gas, basically just money is coming out of the ground, right? So the state will have more economic and leverage power relative to the people. So the people, it's really hard for the people to get to the point where they could actually have any form of economic leverage, for because the source of the revenue from the government doesn't come from the people, it comes from the ground, right? This is why it's really hard to get to a democratic model when you have this much oil and gas. So I don't know if you say, has is it the source of our liberation? I actually think that oil and gas is a source, is the reason why we have been in chains for this long. I don't know if that
Um,
even answers the question, but yeah.
Yeah, but I have a counterpoint to that, because when you see the example of Venezuela, what we are seeing right now is some of the corporates of America controlling the development of petroleum and natural gas in the nation, right? And the way I see it, I see the current US administration, right, the Trump administration, trying to deviate countries like India, China, Indonesia, Thailand, the populous country which takes a lot of fuel from the Russian oil and gas, right? And I see it with Venezuela. Why cannot I see it with Iran? What's your
I
take?
don't understand your point that you're making with
Like,
regards to Venezuela and Russia. I don't really
like
understand the point.
we see a forced liberation in Venezuela, right, from the US administration.
That's not because of the oil. That's that the oil actually caused Venezuela to be able to not be a democracy for this long. It actually contributed to that. Now that another country, it required another country come and say like, yeah, you're not doing that. Venezuela is still not democratic, by the way. So I don't know what your point is.
Yeah, but there was this forced removal of the government here.
But Venezuela hasn't been liberated. Maduro's regime is still in power.
Hmm.
And also, even if it does get liberated at some point, that, like, that's not because of the oil. The oil was the source of revenue for Maduro.
Yep.
It gave them the ability to maintain power over the people.
Yep. Yeah, I see it in that manner, but there's this narrative going on. America liberates wherever there is oil and natural gases, whatever the narrative
Well,
is apart.
America wouldn't need to liberate them if the oil and gas didn't cause them to be tyrannies to begin with,
Yeah. Yeah, but
right?
but the reason I'm going to that assumption,
Last point, because I want to move on
yeah, yeah,
after
exactly,
this.
exactly. I just want to have a
Sure.
counterpoint here. The reason I'm going to that narrative is because there's this huge demand in fuel, and Iran is sanctioned. Allies of America or the trade partners of America won't buy from Iran. Countries like India, which is like a nation apart from Iran, which has
Yeah.
uh, pipelines.
Obviously, the oil and gas has a major reason why United States is interested in this area to begin with. But again, that doesn't negate my point, because you have to dismiss everything that came before it that got us to the point where we have tyranny to begin with, right?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree to this fact. Thank you.
Thank you. I
Okay,
think
next
some.
is
I
Susanna.
think Samantha. What did Samantha? Okay, Samantha, did you want to add something to this point,
No,
or
mine's is very off topic.
no? Okay. Yeah. Okay, Suzanne. Suzanne.
Hello.
Hi.
I was just coming by to share some hopium. Okay, I have
Oh, we need
a
that.
happy, cute story that I thought might be like uplifting to people. So it was funny. The other day I was on Instagram just browsing around, whatever, and I see this girl, this Korean girl, just talking about Iran. And so I watch her videos and it's all very sweet. And she's just like a normal, typical influencer girl. And she stopped like her normal content to talk about Iran. And I was like, "Oh, that's so sweet." And one of the posts was like her like praying for Iran, and it was all very kind. And then she was immediately getting shit for it. Like people posting like, "Why aren't you talking about ICE? Why are you talking about this? Why aren't you talking about Palestine? Blah blah blah." And she had such a good, like, even-headed take. She was like, "You don't actually want to know my opinion on these things. You just want me to agree with your opinion on these things." And she said, like, "Oh, a lot of people all are talking about these issues, but I see no one talking about Iran, and I think what's happening to them is pure evil. So this is what I want to talk about." And then people are accusing her of being a Zionist and all this stuff. And her posts are so sweet. She's like, "I don't know where you're getting this. Like, I just think what's happening to them is wrong." And anyways, so I just see this on Instagram and I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, it's too bad that she's being like they're giving her a hard time for it, blah blah blah." Okay. Then on Saturday, I go to the demonstration in my local community for Iran. And I'm standing there with my community. And then on kind of the outskirts of this demonstration, I see this Korean girl. And I'm like, am I losing my mind, or is this the same girl I saw on Instagram like literally yesterday? But the area where we do demonstrations, there's also like a heavy Chinese and Korean population that sometimes like pop by and just like look at a curiosity. So I was like, "Okay, Susanna, like you have to be strategic right now, because if you go up and ask this girl if she's the girl from Instagram and it's not, that's going to be like super awkward." So anyways, I follow her and I'm kind of like observing and I'm like, "Okay, no, she's staying with the demonstration. She's not just moving on. She's like staying and she's like doing stuff." Okay. So I go up and I approach her and I introduce myself and we're talking and I'm like, "By the way, did you make a video that kind of went a little bit viral the other day of you praying for Iran?" And she was like, "Yeah, that was me." I was like, "Oh, what the hell? I would have like never expected that you live here. That's so cool." So I was talking to her and she's so sweet. Like she was just like such a pure-hearted sweetheart. Like this girl didn't know any of the community, like wasn't really talking to anyone, just by herself in the rain. Like the weather was shit. By herself just showed up. And so I spent a lot of time talking with her and I was like, "Oh, like let me introduce you to people. Like they'll be so happy that you're here. They'll be so grateful for your support, blah blah blah." And I don't know, just that whole interaction was so kind and uplifting to me, because then when I get home, I see
I
that
see
she was
that.
posting that she went to the demonstration and she was posting about Reza Pahlavi. And she's like, "Look, I'm not a geopolitical expert, but like this is what they say that they want, and this is his platform and all this stuff." And she went like full free Iran and all her bio and everything. And I'm like, I need to be friends with this girl. Like I decided she has no choice. She's my friend now. I don't know. That whole interaction made me so happy this weekend, and so I thought you would like hearing that.
That was beautiful. I really like that. Thank you for doing that. That's so sweet. If you weren't there, she would have just been by herself and she wouldn't see, like, that was amazing that you did that.
Yeah, and she
Oh,
was
that's so
asking me like, "Oh,
sweet.
what do you think is gonna happen?" And I was trying to explain to her, I was like, "I think what you did is so nice, and I'm sorry that people are like giving you shit for it." And I was trying to explain like, because she's brand new, like she doesn't get why people have a
Mm,
negative reaction to her doing this, right?
right.
So I was trying to
Y-
explain, like, this is why people get so triggered by this movement, by this community and what their demands are, but you're doing the right thing, and anyone who's giving you crap is, like, 99% not gonna be Iranian, you know? So yeah.
What's her Instagram?
Oh, let me pull it up. Um, 1 second.
We could show it on screen.
Yeah, she was so nice. Um, I just put it in the chat, but her name is Sarah. And yeah, I just thought it was so cool. Look at it, she went like full free Iran, like
Oh, that's so sweet. Look at this. Well, oh, look at this. Free Iran. Oh
yeah,
my
like
God, that's
pray
so
with me for
sweet.
Iran, like
Oh, guys, so her ID is SARIEPARK on Instagram. That's so nice.
she really put herself out there into like something she doesn't know a lot about because she just thought it was the right thing to do. And people are like, being mean about it. So I was like, oh, I want to show her like a lot of extra love and appreciation.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you. That's so sweet.
Yeah. We all need some hopium, some hopium.
Yeah. Thank you, Susie.
I love that that's Susie's thing, like telling us a joke, coming in to giggle, like making sure we all have like a high in the midst of all of this stuff.
Oh, speaking of, hold on.
Oh my god, this better be a puppy sighting. This better be doggies.
There's
Yeah!
one. Yes, another one. Oh, they
Yes,
were
your
just
baby
about to let it
girls.
go.
She's like the
Hey,
tiny
buddy.
version of my dog.
Oh, really? Yeah.
The hair color, at least, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, next we have Daniel Dong. Before you go, after that we have Mozzie, and then we have 2 questions for post show. So depending how the next 2 go, just for timing, there you go.
So lately, Bibi, when he was talking on the UN court, he introduced the QR code, right? And apparently, it reached a lot of views on that atrocities video, right? That was on the 7th of October. And maybe a suggestion that maybe the Iranians should do something similar with the same tactics. Maybe not in the UN, maybe in the UN also. Maybe like post the same QR code in protest, like where Tusi was giving his speech on a public when he went on stage, like places like that. And maybe this also will gain more legitimacy to rid off of this stupid regime. And speaking of legitimacy, in 2022, when the war in Ukraine started, Ukraine was all over the first pages of the papers. And now Putin bombs Ukraine, bombed the hell out of it. Actually, the coldest winter that was last year's. And like nobody talks about it. So I believe the Iranians should work as much as it possible when they are relevant on the news, because I see that the period of time where of like it's starting to run out.
Yep. That's a good suggestion. Thank you. Okay.
Next is Mozzie.
Sorry, I wanted to ask something of Armin. I was gonna say, weighing how effective would be, or how he would think that the idea would be if, for example, the United States knows that it wants to go on a strike of the Islamic Republic, and actually makes it clear that they want nothing less than this regime to go. If they make that clear, how effective would it be if they were to say, we're going to give the higher ups in the regime, 24 hours, for example, to surrender, and like, name a few people, like few officials, maybe 5 or 10 of the higher ups or whatever, and say, if they are handed into us, then we're going to give you a free path to leave the country. But if you don't, within this certain amount of time, we're going to attack. Do you think that would cause enough turmoil to where some of the people in the government would actually turn, like as in say, you know what, we need to hand them in right now or we're all dead. You know what I mean? Like kind of cause that kind of a rift in the government itself to where some will be pushing to hand those people over or some would be like forced to, like, you know, it would cause a kind of a chaos in there.
Basically, what they did with Saddam, you mean? By the way, guys, if you're not speaking, please close your microphones. So, they did that with Saddam, right? Saddam was basically this, and he refused, and that the rest is history. I think that it makes sense to not go to that step, at least right now, because then it makes sense to right now try to see if you're planning to attack anyways. The best strategy would be to give them some hope that they could survive if they just give a couple of their deterrence capabilities away. So, like, I would basically set a trap. I would trick them into thinking that maybe we're not planning to change the regime. So how about you give us this, and that, and then maybe we won't attack. But by doing that, you're basically just pulling their teeth, a few more of their teeth before you do the attack, right? So it's better not to go to that, not to use that method yet. But are you saying that would it make sense to do that at some point? I mean, the thing is that for the regime, a lot of the regime officials, their understanding is that if the regime falls, there's no way that we're going to survive this, given how many Iranians want them dead, right? So they're not just looking at death; they're looking at like death in the worst, worst imaginable, right? So they don't. I don't know if they could, if they believe that they're going to be surviving. Like, imagine if the regime falls and the people who were involved in massacring the Iranian people to this degree, like, do you think that the Iranian people are just going to allow, like, how is the United States going to protect them? Like, is the United States going to use its own armed forces to protect these people against the Iranian people? So they're not going to do that. So at the end, what happens to them is going to be determined by the Iranian people, and the Iranian people are really hungry for revenge right now. That's why, in their minds, the Islamic Republic has to survive no matter what. With that mindset, if you give them an ultimatum that either die or give up the regime, they are going to be like, well, if we give up the regime, we're going to die anyway. So it's going to make them fight even harder. In fact, it might want them to, what we call in Persian, give just zamin sukhta tahvilumon bedem, meaning that if they think that, for some of these regime officials, if they really think that the Islamic Republic is going to collapse and this is inevitable, they might want to take Iran down with them, meaning that maybe they will, I don't know, bomb, like kill highest number of people before they're gone. Maybe they will drop a chemical bomb inside Iran. Maybe they would basically do a dirty bomb, a radioactive thing. Maybe they will do something really crazy. I don't see them just going quietly, like surrendering the Islamic Republic. I think if you basically tell them that we are going to attack if you don't surrender, they might do. These people are like really, some of these people are like crazy to another level. And they might think, well, if Iran is not going to be Islamic, then it shouldn't be at all. And they're like, oh, if this is infidel country now, the Iranians are the enemy, so we're going to take down as many of them, you know, before we collapse. So you might actually I'm not saying this will happen, but I'm just saying that you have to take that into account, because you might actually caught by saying that you might be causing like a level of damage to Iranian people and Iran's neighbors that that nobody had, like, were prepared for. So maybe it actually makes sense to what we call in Persian "bapambas arboridan," which means cutting someone's head with cotton. So you basically just slowly go to to the final step without making it seem like that's what you're planning for. I think that might be a better strategy. But what do you think?
No, I do agree with what you're saying. I just was thinking about whether like there's enough people that are not on the highest level that are maybe just one step lower in the regime that are to the point where like if they know that their lives could be spared
Mm.
somehow, that
Right. Oh.
they would like they would be more
Oh.
willing to do something to get away as opposed to stay around and be bombed
So,
to death. You know what I mean?
right. So with those people, I mean, for them, it's not just bomb, but also the wrath of the Iranian people, right? For those people, the strategy that you're suggesting, Princess of Pahlavi has been working on that strategy for a long time right now, right? Basically telling them that time is up, join the people. It's to protect the Iranian people. You use your guns to protect people against the regime, and if you do, you will be forgiven. So that has been a strategy that Princess of Pahlavi has been using for a while now for those people that you're talking about.
Yeah. So like if they said if like what I'm saying is like if they made an announcement saying like, you send these people and you have a free passage to get out of the country, for example, but after that
I
period's
mean, they don't
over,
need to.
nobody's gonna leave.
They don't need to get out of the country because if there are people that are not the higher ups that they start protecting the people, Princess of Pahlavi has given them the guarantee that they could even work within the regime. They could stay, and they will be forgiven. I mean, I don't know how reasonable that is after the massacre that they just committed, but that's what the deal was, at least before this massacre.
Yeah. And that's like I was saying, yeah, that's true. And that's like coming to defecting to the other side sort of thing. But let's just say these
Yeah,
people are too coward to do that, giving them the way to actually leave the
leave.
country. And so at least they're not fighting against the people. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right, right. Leaving a way for them out. Yeah, that makes sense. And that's what we. That's actually something I said, like a couple of weeks ago, that it's better. Like if you see any of the regime officials running away with money and stuff, just let them, because like a cornered dog will bite you, right? So it's better to actually allow an exit door, because if they didn't have that exit door, they would just be staying and killing Iranians. So it makes sense for us to hunt them down later, but allowing them to run away is actually a good strategy right now.